Today I want to talk to you about Webinarloop 2. This is the latest version of Webinarloop. It's a very powerful software where you can run live, on-demand, scheduled webinars with hands-free automation and with features that actually get the sale. So firstly, you don't require any hosting with Webinarloop. It's a SaaS product. And you get dozens of ready-made templates inside a Webinarloop for your sign-up pages, for your thank you pages, and you can actually customize these templates. There is no need to hire a designer. You can quickly make a template, make a very nice, good looking opt-in page, and you have some breakthrough engagement and sales boosters, and I will show them to you in a moment. Webinarloop is the most powerful and easy to use webinar software, which also lets you create call to actions during webinar. Now, these are the new breakthrough features that you have never seen in any webinar software that are a part of Webinarloop. Number one, you've got call to actions during webinar. So you can show buttons inside of the webinar. People can click on the buttons and buy your product right inside of Webinarloop. You also got things like info pop-ups. There will be pop-ups where people can see tips and tricks from you. You can put in graphics also. You can run you can have banner ads or advertisements, call to actions, graphics, information graphics, whatever you want inside the webinar. And this is something that's been never seen before. And you will be really able to get your audience to react and convert using Webinarloop more than any other software. Again, Webinarloop supports all kinds of webinars, whether you want live webinars, whether you want simulated live webinars or replays, it's got everything. Now I'm on to the dashboard of Webinarloop. This is what you see when you log in for the first time. I've already created some webinars because I don't want to be showing all those unnecessary steps. But when you've logged in, you will see things like the total number of webinars you have, the total number of registrants, and the total number of attendees out of those webinars. You can see how your registrant count is changing across time. You can see how your attendee count is changing. And you can see the performance of all the webinars in one place. So this is a great place to get a bird's eye view of your entire webinar marketing. And over here, you can see the registrants for each webinar. You can download this list in a CSV file, and you can operate on your webinars right over here. If you want to disable a particular webinar, you can do it, or you can even attend the webinars. You can join a webinar that you are a part of and start presentations, whatever you want. So what I'm going to do now is go for one of my webinars and just show you how it works. So I'm going to go for this scheduled webinar that I have. Now this is the name of the webinar. You can name your webinar whatever you want. You can see how many people attended, how many people registered, and what was the watch percentage of the attendees. So this was a test thing. And in this particular case, this people watched 30% of the webinar. So people stuck around 30% of the rule. These were the attendees. All of this information is available, exactly who attended the webinar. All of this information is here. And if you've got multiple sessions, then you can see exactly when the next session is. That information is there too. From the top, you can join the attendee room. You can see the webinar as it will look to one of the participants, or you can edit the webinar. So I'm going to go to edit and show you what features Webinarloop has. So this is the easy to use edit system of Webinarloop, and you will notice that on every screen of the edit you have a tutorial button. If you click on the tutorial, you will be taken to YouTube where you will actually see that particular feature in action. We will show you exactly how it works, and you will be able to understand how to best use this screen. So when you get Webinarloop, you can be sure that you have all the instructions possible, you have all the information possible that you need to create amazing webinars. It's all right inside of webinar. And on the top, you will see two buttons, join attendee room and ready. This is the status of your webinar. So this is something that we have created to help you set up your webinar easily. These are the basic steps that you need to do to set up the webinar. And each time you complete a step, you will see a green check over here. Otherwise, there's a red cross and you will be asked to complete it. And once you've completed all the necessary steps, your webinar will be ready to go live and you can take it live. So again, in details, you will provide information like your webinar subdomain, your webinar title, your webinar description, what language is the webinar in, is it a live webinar, is it a scheduled webinar, or is it an on-demand webinar? You can select that. Now you can also select to make your webinar open to everyone. So anyone who gets the link can access your webinar, or you can lock it with a password. So only those who have signed up to your webinar can access it. You have that option. And if you want to disable your webinar, you don't want people to be able to access it till you want, you can disable it. You can also put in your Webinarloop, your logo, because Webinarloop allows you to customize your player room too. You will be allowed to show your logo on the player room, so you can put the logo from here. Next, If it's a scheduled webinar, if it's a replay, you can put in the video, and you can select from these platforms: YouTube, Vimeo, Vistia. You can upload an MP4 file. If you have, you can just link directly to that MP4 file, or Dailymotion. So we support multiple platforms. Just put in the URL and put in the video length, because webinars need to have the time event. You will, all of these things are timed. The playback is timed. So having the video length in hours, minutes, seconds is going to help you, fire off events and fire off things like when to show the call to action, when to show the chat comment. All of this information is maintained by this. So the video length, and you can decide what schedule you want. It's very easy. So if you want the schedule, if you want the webinar on a particular date, you can select the date, time. If you want the webinar every period, webinar to be running at a specific interval, you can do that too. For example, you can choose the webinar to run every Sunday, Monday, whatever you want. And you can have multiple schedules like that. If you want, you can have webinar run on every weekday. So you can add a webinar on Sunday, you can add a webinar on Monday, you can add a webinar on Tuesday. So all of that can be done, and you can run the webinar on multiple days, and maybe even have the webinar run every day. So that's possible using the schedule. Next, you have presenters. So these are the people who are actually presenting the webinar. You can put in an email, for example, and click on add presenter, and that person will be added as a presenter. So it's very easy. The presenters will receive an email. Once they accept the invitation in their email ID, they will be shown up as an added presenter. So next we have layout. Webinarloop lets you customize the thank you page and the sign up page for the webinar. It's very easy. You can choose a registration template by clicking on select and customize. Click on select and customize. These are the registration pages already inside of Webinarloop. You can pick any design, click on customize, and it's going to open in a page builder. You can change whatever you want. You can change the image. You can even delete it if you want, and you can modify the page any way you want to create your own custom webinar sign up page. Once you're done, click on save page, and that's it. This template will be modified, and then people will be able to go to that particular page. For example, this is what I modified. So you can see in the preview that it's modifying, and your attendees will see that page when they go to the webinar sign up page. Similarly, you can have your custom thank you pages too. If you click on send to URL, you can send people to any URL you want after they sign up to the webinar. So when people have signed up to the webinar, you want to show them something extra like a special offer, or you want to thank them for signing up, or you want to send them to your landing page, whatever you want, you can do that inside of Webinarloop. And you have custom widgets. Now that's what I was talking about when I told you about the new engagement system. So on the sidebar, you can have things like images. You can have all sorts of widgets, in fact. So we have a poll here. So people will see a poll after 5 seconds. Do you think Google rankings are important? And when people vote, they will see the results of the poll, how many people have voted, and what is the result of the poll. You can even have images, like let's say you have a nice infographic or your nice graphic over there. You can show that graphic. For example, this one is set to show after 10 seconds on the sidebar. And you can have call to action buttons. Like I have a call to action over here, no about Techniforce. So this can be a call to action button which will be shown after 15 seconds, and when people click on it, they'll be taken to the Techniforce website. Whatever you put in, for example, if I click on the edit button, I can edit this particular call to action. So this is the CTA heading, this is the title, this is the button text, and this is where the button will take the viewer. This is, for example, the image. So you can use graphics as a link too. So all of that is possible. You can even have a question. So we support images, we support polls, we support call to actions and questions. So whenever somebody answers it, you will see that answer. This is 100% new, guys, and I will show you a demo of it right now in action. So here I've got a sample webinar. You can see the polls on the sidebar. People can answer the polls. And this is the information pop-up. So you can have nice tips and tricks in the information pop-up. And you can also have graphics on the side of your webinar. So you can show some graphics. You can have call to action in the graphics. You can have discount coupons, scarcity. You can have CTAs. That was a CTA. People can click on it and go. And this is the questions bar. So with the CTA, you can have people go to your payments page with the graphic and create scarcity. And you can have live polls. So all of these are engagement drivers inside of Webinarloop. And this is the chat box. So this is how people will see things. Webinarloop also lets you have full control on the chat. So if you're running a scheduled webinar, you can decide exactly what is being said at what time by who, and you can modify it anytime. You can add new conversation points, and this will help you keep a control on the narrative. You can build the narrative exactly how you want using Webinarloop and the scheduled replays. And if you got a live webinar, this chat will be available to you. You can keep exactly what you want. And if you think something is not productive for you, you can delete it. And when you run it as a scheduled webinar, you'll be able to have the narrative exactly the way you want it. Then we've got a very strong system of reminders. We've got email reminders, and you can integrate any SMTP inside of Webinarloop, and you can send out email reminders on the schedule you want, like 7 days or 1 hour before the webinar, whatever message you want to send, you can send it out and it will be automatically sent. We've got similarly SMS reminders too. You can integrate Twilio, and you'll be able to send out SMSs from Webinarloop. Plus, we also have autoresponder integration. So if you look into the autoresponder section, on the sidebar, you can see what autoresponders are already connected. And here are some autoresponders integrated. If you want to integrate any autoresponder that's not a part of this list, any of your accounts, just select the autoresponder you want to integrate with most of the popular autoresponders, and you'll be able to take your leads directly from Webinarloop to your autoresponder. And if you got any sequences there, they will be fired. So that's something really amazing. Plus, you've got tracking, so you can embed your own tracking code. So you got, if you got like a Google code, if you got Facebook Pixel, you can put that in, and you can run retargeting ads, you can run conversion ads. All of that is possible. And in recruitment, you can have attendees added to the webinar, not just from the integrated sign up pages inside the Webinarloop, but you can have them coming to you from any landing page. So we've got opt-in pages over here, opt-in code over here. Just as you integrate an autoresponder opt-in code in your landing pages, you can integrate this, and you will get signups from that landing page directly into Webinarloop. Or you can even use an API. We have an API URL. You can have attendees sign up to Webinarloop using the API URL, so that's extra. Plus, we've got Zapier integration. Anyone who signs up into Webinarloop, you can send the data to any CRM you want using Zapier. And in the attendees section, you can see all the people who attended the webinar. You can export them, and you can also import attendees. So if you want to just bring in a list and start mailing your webinar to them, you can do that. And integration section, we've got integration with leads to list and ads list. So if you want to run ads on Facebook and on Google to have people sign up to your webinar directly from your ad, it's possible with integrations with leads to list and ads list. So this is how Webinarloop is. By far, it is the most powerful webinar software invented today, with features that you will not find in any comparable or in any webinar software that is competing with it. It is the best software, plus some new innovations like the engagement drivers that I showed you are going to help you capture more market.